I almost think it wasn't when we were up there. It looked pretty good. But yeah, I mean that the final candle that pushed PulseX up, kind of like the way that got sold down, it was clear that there's people that wanted to exit, and actually everyone was so bullish then, right? It's funny how the emotions change so much, but I'm bullish for the right reasons down here, and versus it being like emotionally charged at the top of a range. But yeah, no, I think I don't think we were going to go up. Looking back retrospectively, I don't think we were going to go up from those levels after that massive wick. Maybe I'll just you want to throw that back up? Sorry about that.
Yeah,
I mean that was like a massive volume candle. It was $44 million was traded here, and it tried. You see this kind of chart pattern a lot where it like makes a big wick to the upside and then forms this kind of like sort of like a bear rising wedge type thing, and then that's a clear indicator of a top. The same thing happened on big payday for Hex, where you get this big pump like a hockey stick, and then it creates this bear pennant or like a rising wedge, and then it just goes down like 80%. We're not necessarily going to go down 80% here. I think we're down 70%, which is like really good. That's like a healthy amount to be down in crypto. If you get support between 70 and 80%, that's super, super bullish actually. And so like this is coming into tap these levels. I know I didn't really directly answer your question, but the price action to me seems like it's good, and that it's perking up. And the reason why I say that is because you're in this like pennant structure, which is a neutral structure. It's not necessarily, it's only bearish insofar as typically it'll go with the trend. So then the next logical level down is like the equal amount of distance from the previous breakdown, and then you just push that out, and then that would have us at like 4 zeros and a 4 or 5, which would test these lows. And that's the probabilities that it would do that. However, these are neutral patterns by nature, and so then it can actually go back the other way. And if there was a place to do it, it would be right here at these key support levels. It was also resistance flip to support here. So when I talk about like in the beginning of the stream when I was talking about flipping resistance as support, or like a breakout, a retest, and a resumption, that's what I mean. Is like you broke out of a key resistance line, then you came back to test this level as support, and then you resumed off that level. And you'll see that all over crypto charts, or you'll see that over charts where they break out, they retest the level, and then they go from there after an accumulation has happened. And so actually I think this was a lot of bullish accumulation up in here. It just it wasn't sustained. So then once this happened, that was pretty bad. Like this breakdown here was pretty rough, which I think it was Richard kind of antagonized people by saying like, hey, I thought you wanted to sell, and people obviously clearly did want to sell. So this is not out of the norm. Hex actually went down minus like 79% before it rallied off its first major low. So this is like par for the course for RH coin coming out of the bottom of a bear. Remember that this is still bull market money. So Pulse really hasn't really had an official bear. Pulse is transporting Hex bull market energy into this bull market through Pulse and PulseX. But part of the reason why I'm seeing strength in this chart, beyond this just being a potential pennant reversal, is PulseX gaining on Pulse. So that means that a lot of the selling in the PulseX side of things is minimal compared to what it used to be. And down here, for example, and that these ratios are starting to hold better and grind to the upside. So that's all bullish and optimistic. And then Inc, it's doing the same thing it did before. In the pulse ratio, it's range bound, just like it was ping-ponging around inside of here. It's doing the same thing, but at a bigger scale here, ping-ponging around, probably getting ready to do something like this. Because this is going to happen when Pulse breaks this pennant. So when Pulse breaks out, retests, and resumes, and then somebody dumps it and it gets crapped on, and then it does like a weird pattern, and then it does a higher low, and then it goes because, hexagons don't like nice things. this is what will happen, is something where you start to break out, make new local highs, make new local lows, and then grind up from there. And inside of that process, you're going to see economic energy get stored in PulseX. You're going to see it get stored in ink. And so these two coins are going to go up in their ratio against Pulse. The only one that's actually not performing that well, you can see here, this isn't to my prior statement. This is Pulse. This is ink versus PulseX. You can see it was a different pattern. It was a falling wedge that broke out, and now it's consolidating in a little triangle. This is going to break out, create another pattern, break out, create another pattern, break out. It'll just keep doing that again because ink is going to be a little bit more performative than PulseX no matter what, because there's a lower market cap and nobody sacrificed for it. It's more desired. It's the golden goose right now. Everyone wants it. But ink hex is what's really interesting to me right now. I know you're a hex fan, RHMax, and this ink hex chart. Look at how beat up ink looks when you're measuring it in hex terms. I mean, it went down 50%. So you lost 50% of your hex value sitting in ink during this period, during this, you know, you could say shoulder, head, shoulder, head and shoulders reversal pattern to the downside, break of the neckline, you double the move down, bam, and that's where we're trying to find support. So it could find support here, but if hex gets a second wind here and breaks this 618, sorry if I'm moving really fast, but we're short for time. So, but this is the hex measured in pulse. If it breaks this 618 level, probably within the next 3 to 6 days, then it's spend the next 3 days flipping that as support, and then the next 3 days it'll actually resume off that level. You started a new trend, and this, I mean, this could go all the way up to the 382, which would make sense. You had such a nice move, consolidate below the 618, and then boom, make another nice move. That would mean that this ink ratio is going to fall and break these key supports. And, you know, it would have been better off getting into hex with some of your ink bag. So, you know, I was one of those guys that took that trade there with some of my ink and put it in there. Now, I'm not bearish on ink. I hold a lot of ink. I love ink, and I don't think it's done yet. And I think, you know, you could 2 to 3x off the $10 level easy at some point here. And so, but I think thinking ahead now and balancing your ink and hex, because they're the two ends of a seesaw of yield on PulseChain, the stable ones, that's RH related. You're going to really want to think about capitalizing on these pumps. So like if ink goes up here to test and it looks like it's starting to lose steam, you may want to flip some into hex. Remember, this is the ink hex ratio, guys, not the dollar price, because the dollar price won't tell you anything. Because like in dollar terms, I'm sorry, in Pulse and PulseX terms, ink is still winning. Ink is winning against those two coins. So it's just hex that's kind of competing with it right now. What are your thoughts on some of that stuff?
Yeah, I was just thinking that sitting in the yield farms, you know, with your RH coins, I mean, that's kind of like right now, if you're not, I don't know, like when people talk about buying ink, what is it? What is your response when you think about buying ink versus sitting in the farms and earning it? Always, you know, with hex, you're earning more hex. With the farms, though, you're sitting with Pulse or PulseX or with the ink compounding. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, why would you ever buy ink? Only earn it and sell it type of thing. But accumulating it too is, when you think accumulation,
you should be buying
ink,
it.
Is it buying, or is it just like, you know, putting?
Well,
it
I mean, you should be earning it, buying it, like any way you can get more ink, because it's still only 100 million market cap, whereas the other ones are a lot more expensive. I mean, PulseX is 5x more expensive on the market cap. Hex is 8x more expensive, and you know, Pulse is basically 10x as expensive on the market cap, which is telling you it's foreshadowing overhead sell pressure. So these have limitations on the speed and rate of pump, whereas ink does not. Ink does not have the same baggage that the other ones have for different reasons. That's why when these do get moving, this one moves the hardest, because it's got less baggage, and it pays you to hold it and lock it in the farm. So yeah, I mean, what does reality look like? Is ink, you know, 8x underpriced? Should ink be 800 million market cap? You know, I don't know if that's the case, or that hex should be like 1.6 to 2.4 billion market cap, and ink should be at like 500 million. Like that's, to me, seems like appropriate. Look at the shark position down here is 100 grand. A shark position on Hex is 800 grand. You know, Dolphin, you know, it's a big difference in terms of like earning potential. I mean, this thing's paying like 40 to 50% APRs, you know, to stick it in the farms. And this thing's just not paying anywhere near, in dollar terms, and on a short basis, what this one's paying. And it's still, the market is still offsides on ink, and most people don't have enough of it. So you should be accumulating ink as like a way to make faster gains and deploy those into some of these other things. But you can farm it too. Like, you know, if you're limited, this is the tough part, is like, I don't know on a specific case, like you may be in a position where you can't really, you bring so much fresh capital into the market, and you have to use what you have in the market. And if that's you and you don't have enough Pulse Hex or PulseX, you know, then it basically forces you to make a decision. Am I going to split, like if I have all my bag in Pulse, so I have to almost make a decision, am I going to split that in half and with ink and put that in the ink farms, or am I going to split it with Hex and then make a ladder that goes out past 10 years or 5 years and wait and just win harder later? You know, that's kind of the decision point that we're at for a lot of this. These prices, you should be selling your wife, your kids, your dog, your car, you know, just doing whatever you can do, you know, cook street food for people.
You going full Michael Saylor
right now? Online
cybernetics, hornet's nest.
If you got a family business that you just can't bear to sell, and you got to, you know,
borrow money against it and then buy more Bitcoin. Like, that's the thing. It was just like,
you know, it's like one of those things where it's like, if you're not, you know, levering up as hard as possible, what are you doing with your life, type of thing.
Not financial advice, just remind everyone out there. There's a quote from Michael Saylor. However, we can see Access Live is very bullish on this ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, I don't waste my time with other ecosystems, because this is a magical place, and there's, you know, the chart looks down, but like my group, we're winning. Like, we're winning the game of accumulating more units, and that's the game right now. And the best part is you can even accumulate more units without hitting the red button. That's the best part. Most people don't really get that, but most people think like, oh, that guy, you know, sells or dumps on my head, or, you know, there's pump and dump groups and stuff like that. But that's not the strategy. The strategy in this ecosystem is LP. Like, LP is the godhead of gains on PulseChain. Like, you have a perfect setup. It's a modern age gold rush with the LP and the dexes, and, you know, if it down does not mean out, because there's all these coins are floating, and you can be accumulating more units while they're floating inside of a ratio, and you're not even exiting the ecosystem. You're just getting more units when it's opportunistic. So for example, you on this here's an easy play. Like when you saw this breakdown coming, where it was coming into the support line and it was a potential breakdown. I mean, if you flipped ink for Hex here, because you saw on April 17th that Hex was about to break out of this trend. I mean, this was so obvious. I mean, it's obvious for me anyway. It's just pattern recognition. The on the 17th right here, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th is when this blew up. So you had like a day to make the move right at the edge of this falling wedge. And this is based on 2 touch points. This one, and then this one where it was touching it. And then at that same point in that same day, on this ink Hex ratio, it was right there that this broke down, obviously, because it's the same. This is showing you the ratio of ink and Hex together. So you can see these things coming before they come, and you can make these ratio trades. You could have set a single-sided position where you put some ink in Hex, you put some ink in the ink Hex pool on 9mm or like 9-inch V3 or something, and you let the price do what it's going to do, and then you wake up the next morning and you're filled on your position, and you just got, you know, the other side of the trade. You didn't have to hit the sell button. So I mean, that's one example of a strat you could pull off.
Do you think we'll get to a point where accumulation is primarily through LP, and it's not this, you know, basically the red candles in the chart mostly disappear?
I can totally, just talk over you this whole segment because yes, I'm so excited by this because yes, I think that this class of people that's here now, that's getting ahead and that's dominating the network and accumulating all the units. Yeah, they're going to be the ones that's going to be playing this game at like a higher level, while the next group of people comes in behind them, and they're thinking about buys and sells and candle colors. They're going to be at level 1, while all y'all are going to be at like level 5 or level 8.